Hey y'all, it's me again. I'm going to continue reading from my book, The 1910s. So let's go! The night at work, the night at home. The region's people strike. Philip S. Bonner. Although the nation's economic expansion in the late 1800s improved the lives of many people, workers did not share in the benefits. Laboring under conditions that bordered on the criminal, men, women, and children battled to subsist from week to week. In the following selection, labor historian Philip S. Bonner graphically details the reasons why workers organized a 1912 strike in Lawrence, Massachusetts. Situated in the Merrimack River Valley, about 30 miles north of Boston, Lawrence had the reputation in 1912 of being the worst center of the world. The American Woolen Company, Morgan controlled the most powerful textile corporation in America, had three of its largest woolen mills in Lawrence. The Washington employing about 6,500 hands of wood with 5,200 operatives, and the iron with 2,000 hands. The only independent woolen mill was the George E. Coonhart, employing about 950. There were four large cotton mills in Lawrence. The Arlington, employing about 6,500 workers. The Pacific, the largest, employed the Everett, the largest producer of cotton print goods in the world, with 5,200 employees. The Everett employed 2,000 operatives, and the Atlantic giving employment to 1,300 hands. There were also two small cotton mills employing together 1,100 people, and a large textile dyeing establishment owned by the U.S. Worsted Company, employing 600 workers. All told, the 12 mills in Lawrence, when operating at maximum capacity, furnished employment to approximately 32,000 men, women, and children. The mill owners reaped huge profits. Dudley Holman, Secretary Governor Foss of Massachusetts, proved this statistically by disclosing that in 1902, when its capital stock was valued at $49,501,000, the American Woolen Company paid out $1,400,000 in dividends, while in 1911, when the capital stock was valued at $60 million, it paid dividends of $2,800,000. Thus, in the course of 10 years, dividends increased 100%, while the capital invested rose less than 20%. In 1911, the American Woolen Company's dividend was 7%, that of Pacific Mills 12%, and that of the Arlington Mill 8%. Portrait of the factory worker. The character of the working population in Lawrence's textile mills had undergone a sharp change in the nearly 7 decades between the founding of the city in 1845 and the Great Strike of 1912. Until the 1880s, the Native Americans, English, Irish, Scotch, and French Canadians were the dominant elements in the textile factories, and many of them were skilled workers. With the technological advances of the 1880s, the skilled personnel were rapidly displaced, and after 1890, the Italian, Greeks, Portuguese, Russians, Poles, Lithuanians, Syrians, and Armenians took their places. By 1912, the Italian, Poles, Russians, Syrians, and Lithuanians had definitely replaced the Native Americans and Western Europeans as the predominant groups in the textile mills of Lawrence. Within a 1-mile radius of the mill district, there lived 25 different nationalities speaking a half 100 different languages. The largest ethnic group in the city was Italian. To induce the new immigrants to work in Lawrence, the American Woolen Company posted placards in the towns throughout southern Europe which pictured the textile workers holding bags of gold, displaying bank books with substantial bank accounts, and standing outside household homes which they were said to own. What was the real state of affairs these foreign-born workers found awaiting them in Lawrence? They could be summed up succinctly. Inadequate wages, difficult working conditions, subhuman housing faculties, and a community unsympathetic when non-hostile to their needs. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics made A study of the payroll reports from 4 woolen and 3 cotton mills in Lawrence for the week ending nearest November 25th, 1911, about 7 weeks before the strike. It covered a total of 21,922 workers, including overseers and clerks, or about two-thirds of the total number in the mills on the eve of the strike. The average rate per hour of 16,578 hours skilled and unskilled in the 4 woolen and worsted mills was 16 cents, and the average amount earned for the week under study was $8.75. The average hourly rate of 5,344 employees, skilled and unskilled, in the cotton mills was 15.8 cents, and the average weekly earnings were $8.78. These wages included premiums or bonuses, but 59.8% of the operators in the woolen mills earned less than 15 cents an hour, and 14% of those in the cotton mills less than 12 cents. Almost one-third, 33.2%, of both woolen and cotton operatives received less than $7 per week. The average weekly wages revealed this study were based on earnings during a week when the mills were running full-time, but none of the mills worked full-time throughout the year. Although the Bureau declared that it could not ascertain the amount of unemployment, it conceded that there is a serious curtailment of earnings due to lost time, and concluded that the $8.75 and $8.78 average wages for the week under study were far too high for an annual average. The Lawrence textile industry was a family industry, but this pleasant-sounding phrase had a deadly meaning for the workers. To keep the family alive, the husbands, wives, children worked in the mills. On the eve of the strike in 1912, one-half of all children in Lawrence between 14 and 18 were employed in the mills. 44.6% of the textile workers were females, and 11.5% were boys and girls under 18. As the earnings of the wives were pitifully small, those of the children were even less. Testimony before a congregational committee revealed that the youngsters, boys and girls 14 to 16 years of age, earned $7 and $5 or less per week when the mills were running full time. Confronted with such frightening statistics, the mill owners claimed that competition from other New England states in the South forced wages down, but they did not mention that this did not keep profits from soaring, and that they were expanding their operation in Lawrence rather than reducing them because of this competition. Actually, profits had gone up while wages had gone down in the face of rising living costs. Congressman Victor Berger, Socialist Wisconsin, revealed that in 1890, when the industry for a profit of $16 billion, 4,000,000, $5,098 and $1,064,000,000, 5,000 $5,098,665, I think. Labor received 22% of the gross profit. In 1905, when profits had increased to $2,012,006,090.48, wages accounted for only 19.5% of the total profits. Workers' grievances. According to U.S. Bureau of Labor, the average work week in the mills of Lawrence was 56 hours, but 21.6% worked more than 56 hours, and none of the workers were paid a rate higher for overtime than the regular scale. While demand for a shorter work week was not an important issue in the strike, a fact which is hardly surprising, since with hourly rates as low as they were, the workers needed a lengthened week, not a shorter one, to earn enough to stay alive. One of the strikers' demands was for double pay for all overtime. Chief among the grievances of the Lawrence workers was the premium or bonus system, which was introduced by William M. Wood, president of the American Woolen Company, and was used extensively in the mills. essentially a speed-up plan designed to obtain the highest possible production for each employee, providing, in the case of the better paid occupations such as the weavers, loom fixers, warp dressers, assistant overseers, slashers, and menders, for a bonus to the work whose output exceeds some fixed standard. In the other occupations, the bonus was paid for regular attendance. Any employee who had not missed more than one day during a 4-week period received a premium. Various other complaints were voiced by workers appearing as witnesses at the congregational hearing. Water supplied by mills was usually so warm due to the presence of numerous steam pipes in the wheel rooms that the workers were forced, in order to quench their thirst, to buy cold drinking water at a weekly charge of 10 cents. The mills held back a weekly's wages on all new workers, thus imposing a heavy burden on them during the first 2 weeks of employment. Workers, especially children, were docked 1 hour's pay for coming 5 or 10 minutes late, and if the lateness was repeated 3 times, they were fired. And all witnesses expressed severe indignation at the tyrannical attitude of the foreman and their dealings with the workers. The overseers insisted that the women workers sleep with them as a condition of holding on to their jobs, swore at the men, women, and children alike, constantly cursed at the foreign-born workers, calling them ignorant daggos and hunkies, and treating them as if they were dumb cattle. We have already seen enough of the conditions in the Lawrence mills to understand how inevitable it was that a mass uprising of the workers should occur. But even this is only part of the story. What sort of life did the earnings of the mill workers permit? Living conditions. Nearly all the textile workers lived in a slum area so congested that 2 tenements were erected on the same lot. One in front, the other on the rear of the lot. A dark alley between the front houses provided the only entrance for the rear building. The rooms that needs wooden fire traps were gloomy and dingy. Toilet facilities were totally inadequate and plumbing defective. 1 2 toilets placed in the dark tenement halls for a 4-story tenement was not unusual. In his report for the year 1912, the Lawrence Inspector of Buildings wrote, conditions in the congested districts of the city are drawing close to the danger line in the matter of building construction for tenement purposes. The tendency for some property owners to use every inch of available space has in some quarters developed conditions that are not alone a menace to health, but to life itself. Each year, he complained, I have recommended that the City Council take up the matter of revising the building ordinances, but each year the proposal was buried by a council dominated by property owners loath to increase taxes. The mills owner living in Boston or New York paid no personal tax to the city, and the mills paid only a moderate property tax. The shopkeepers and property owners of Lawrence frowned on high expenditures for services for the foreign-born, since this would increase their tax burden. Yikes. And convinced that these conditions were good enough for hunkies, poles, and wops. Rents were so high that most families had to take in boarders and lodgers to meet the payment. They ranged from $2.75 per week for 4-room flats to $4.50 for 5 and $5 for 6-room flats. Little wonder that the health department found that 4 or 5 persons lived in a room. The U.S. Bureau of Labor discovered that the Italians in the crowded sectors of Chicago, Cleveland, Buffalo, Milwaukee, and other large cities. The cost of food, clothing, and fuel was equally excessive. Testimony before the Congressional Committee revealed that the price of meat was so high, even of stewed beef, as cheap grade, which sold at 10 to 14 cents a pound, and for which there was a great demand by the foreign workers, that its presence on the table was more or less regarded as an occasion for a holiday. Meat usually appeared only at Sunday dinner. For the rest of the week, the diet consisted of black bread, coffee, molasses, or lard. Okay, Milk selling at 7 cents a quart was out of reach of most workers' families who depended entirely on condensed or evaporated milk. Often, when witnesses reported, the children were hungry. There were days when only bread and water kept them alive. There being no place for the storage of coal in the crowded tenements, coal would have to be purchased in small quantities. This naturally increased the cost tremendously. For a 20-pound bag of coal, the common price was 10 to 13 cents, and that is from $10 to $13 per ton, an increase from 40 to 80% over the price of coal if purchased by the ton. As for clothing, the comment of one student of conditions of Lawrence aptly sums up the situation. Ironically enough, in the greatest woolen center in the country, the producers of suits could not afford the price of $15, which was prohibitive to them. Nor could the women who made the cotton dresses pay $3 for them. Cotton shirts sold at exorbitant prices, ranging from $2 to $5. As for overcoats, they were out of the question, and to the spectator it appeared that most of the workers of Lawrence wore sweaters beneath the coats of their suits. Public charitable institutions failed from lack of funds and indifference to the needs of the workers to supplement inadequate wages. Reverend Clark Carter, director of public health and charity, who defended child labor as a beneficent influence in the community, declared that the standard of living of the factory workers was all that should be expected. Lawrence had two dubious honors. One was that it was a leading contender for being the most congested city in the nation, with 33,700 people, one-third of the population dwelling on less than 1/13 of the city's area. The slum area. The other was that the infant mortality death rate in Lawrence was one of the highest of the industrial cities in the nation. Of the 1,524 deaths in Lawrence in 1910, 711, or 46.6%, were of children less than 6 years. Indeed, in that year, the total deaths in Lawrence was exceeded, according to the U.S. Census Office, by only 6 cities out of 40 selected. Unquestionably, the foul tenements, poor diet, and lack of warm clothing were important factors in the high number of deaths. Overcrowded housing. In 1912, the director of public safety found only 4 rooms without beds in them on a whole block of tenements. And an inadequate diet probably accounted for the high tuberculosis rate. In 1912, the Department of Health estimated that 800 people in the city had tuberculosis. The Lawrence survey conducted in 1911 fixed the number of deaths due to this disease at 150 yearly. Workers take a stand. Here then were the conditions which led to the great upheaval of the Lawrence textile workers. These conditions, one might add, were no better in other New England textile centers, and explain why they finally revolted to strike or stay. For years, the employees have forced conditions upon us that gradually and slowly broke our homes. They have taken away our wives from our homes. Our children have been driven from the playground, stolen out of schools, and driven into the mills, where they were strapped to the machine, not only to force the fathers to compete, but that their young lives may be coined into dollars for a parasite class, that their very nerves, their laughter, and joy denied may be woven into cloth. We hold that as useful members of society and as producers, we have the right to lead decent and honorable lives. Decent and honorable lives. That we are to have homes and not shacks. That we ought to have clean food and not adulterated food at high prices. That we ought to have clothes suited to the weather. Please comment, rate, and subscribe down below. And if you're on YouTube, please ring that bell notification so that you can know when I upload. And if you're on TikTok, please like and follow my videos. And on YouTube, let's get to 50 subscribers. And on TikTok, let's get to 50 followers. And once we do that for both platforms, I'm going to have something special, okay? So yeah, and please pay for something either on my eBay and or Mercari. Okay, bye. Have fun.